Welcome to Shastrikara's astrological series. This is one of the series of presentations that I am doing for sudden death analysis. There were three examples that I provided, and then recently I did the sudden death analysis for the Bollywood actor Irfan Ali Khan, who died on 29th April. The very next day, that is on 30th April, another Bollywood actor Rishi Kapoor died, and it was not a sudden death. He had some cancer, and but he was having this problem for a long time, but he died on 30th April. So in this presentation, what I'm trying to do is that how did the transit planets uh, activate this event to happen, and I'll try to explain to the best I can. I had Welcome to Shastrikara's astrological series. I had done few presentations about sudden death analysis. I did the three examples in this regard, and then I took the analyzed the sudden death of Irfan Ali Khan, who died on 29th April 2020, and exactly on the same day or the next day. It is the next day on 30th April 2020. The famous Bollywood actor, another Bollywood actor, Rishi Kapoor died. It was so unfortunate to hear that. I still remember his movie Bobby, that was released in year 1973. I was a small kid. I was in my middle school, I think. Yeah, I was in my middle school, and I still remember that movie and the famous songs from that movie and his action, all those things. There are a lot of other movies that I like him as an actor, but and it's so unfortunate to see him dying out of cancer. This presentation, what I'm going to do is, as usual, I don't know the time of birth, so I took the date of birth and the place of birth as Mumbai. He was born in Mumbai because I know that his father, uh, Raj Kapoor, was in Mumbai at the time. So what I did was using superimposed the transit planets on 30th April on the natal chart of his birth chart, and using Chandra Lagna, as I did for Irfan Ali Khan. I did the analysis to find out what could be the possible astrological reasons for this event to happen. And we know that he's struggling. He's a cancer patient, just like Irfan Ali Khan. He's also having some medical issues and terminal illness, and we know that it's one day it's going to happen. But it's from astrological perspective, why did it happen on 30th April is what I'm trying to analyze it and put it in the and then I kept it in this presentation, and please use it as a for your educational purposes only. And I'm very sorry if I had hurt any of your feelings. This is exclusively for educational purposes I created this presentation. Thank you very much for watching this video. Okay, now let's start analyzing the natal chart using Chandra Lagna. The date of birth is September 4th, 1952 in Mumbai. We don't know the time of birth. That's what I mentioned. That's the reason why we are using Chandra Lagna. So when we are discussing about the death of end of life for a native, the houses that we always analyze is, apart from the first house, it's not just the eighth house that we have to look at it. We have to look at the three Marakasthanamons, second, seventh, and the 12th. All the three are the Marakasthanamos. Eighth house is the Mujjasthanamo, and apart from these four houses, you should also look at the sixth house, which is the Rogasthanamo. The reason is, from the sixth house, the direct aspect is on the 12th house. So the end of life and diseases, that is, there's a relationship between the end of life and the diseases the native is might go through, which results in end of life. Here in this chart, Lagna, the Chandra Sun Moon is in Aquarius, That means the Lagnadipati is Saturn. So Saturn is the lord of the first house and 12th house. And now we'll start for the second house. In first house, you accept moon, there is no other planet. That's a lucky part of it. The second house is empty. The Lagnadipati, the second house lord Marakasthanadipati is Jupiter. Jupiter is in Aries. That's okay. And then comes the sixth house. The sixth house lord is moon. See, moon residing in the first house owns the sixth house. So the the Rogasthanaadipati is in Tanusthanamu. So that tells you that the possibility for this particular native to have an end of life is more towards a disease causing the end of life. And then what planet is there in the sixth house? In the sixth house, the planet that is residing is Ketu. That means in the 12th house, Rahu is residing. Rahu is having a direct aspect on the sixth house. Rahu indicates what you call it as a disease for which there is no cure, or a disease that nobody knows it, unknown disease. Some sort of uncertainty pertaining to the disease will cause the end of life for this particular native. That's clearly visible here when you look from the Chandra Lagna. The next is the seventh house. Seventh house is another Mrityusthanamo, and the seventh house lord is Sun. And when you look at it in seventh house, the planets that are residing are Sun and Mercury. So the seventh house lord itself is in seventh house. The eighth house lord Mercury is also in the seventh house. So that's another reason. And the Tanusthana, the sixth house lord Moon, is having a direct aspect on the seventh house. So you can see the relationship is slowly building up. And next comes the eighth house. As I said, eighth house lord is Mercury. And look at the planets that are residing in the eighth house. In eighth house, you have Saturn, the first and 12th house lord Saturn, and the Venus, natural Venus. Okay, and Saturn is residing in the eighth house, is having a direct aspect on the second house, the Marakasthanamu. So residing in the Mrityusthanamu, owning the Lagna Tanusthanamu, the first house, and the 12th house Mokshasthanamu, end of life, Saturn is now having a direct aspect on the second house. So that tells you that how the Saturn is playing a role here. And in the 12th house lord is Saturn, I said, as usual, and then Rahu is residing in the 12th house. Now this, just by looking at the planet positions, it tells you what could be the possible reasons for this particular native to, when it comes to the end of life, and which planets could play a vital role when it comes to the end of life. Now let's go and see where are the transit planets in these 5 crucial houses. We'll start with the first. In first house, let me start with the first house. The first house, there are no transit planets there. In the second house, there are no transit planets there. In the sixth house, you have no transit planets there. Seventh house, no transit planets. Eighth house, no transit planets. So the only transit planets that are in the 12th house are Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter. All the 3 transit planets are in the 12th house from Chandra Lagna, co-joined with the Rahu, having a direct aspect on the 6th house, and Saturn is the 12th house lord and the 1st house lord. Mars is just Mars, forget about Mars. Mercury is the 8th house, sorry, transit Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter. Jupiter is the 2nd house lord. So Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter, transit planets. All these 3 transit planets are in the 12th house, co-joined with Rahu. The next step I do is, after the transit planets residency, where the transit planets are residing, or are there any transit planets in these 5 crucial houses, then I start looking at the aspects of these transit planets. First and the foremost, in the 3 transit planets that we have to look at is the transit Saturn, transit Mars, and transit Jupiter. Okay, now transit Saturn's 3rd aspect is on the 2nd house. It's perfect for all these. When Moon is in Aquarius, the second house is Pisces, and so the transit Saturn's third aspect is on the second house. And remember, the second house lord is Jupiter, and transit Jupiter is co-joined with transit Saturn. And the next comes is sixth house. We have a direct aspect, transit Mars, transit Saturn, and transit Jupiter. All the three are having a direct aspect on the sixth house. Then there comes the seventh house. If you look at it, Mars eighth aspect, only Mars. Mars eighth aspect is on the seventh house, where you have the seventh house lord Sun, natal Sun residing, and the eighth house lord natal Mercury is residing. So see how Mars is playing an important role here. And then comes the eighth house. In eighth house, the only aspect you have is transit Jupiter's ninth aspect is on the eighth house. Jupiter is the second house lord. Now transit natal Jupiter is the second house lord. Transit Jupiter is now having a ninth aspect. Using its ninth aspect, it is looking at the eighth house, where natal Saturn is residing. Natal Saturn is the first and 12th house lord. And then comes the most important is Rahu. Rahu is residing in the fifth house and having a direct aspect on the 11th house. And the 11th house lord is again Jupiter. It's just information purpose, but we don't have any problem. You don't need Rahu's impact is not that much here. I mean, transit Rahu's impact is not that much. It's the natal Rahu that has a major impact for this particular event to happen. And then in 12th house, no planets are aspecting the 12th house. No transit planets are aspecting the 12th house. After completing the transit natal chart analysis and then the position of transit planets and their aspects, the last thing that I do is to go through the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati and figure out which planet is the cycle ruler and which planet and which house does it activate at that position at this time, during this time. If you look at it, the cycle ruler is Jupiter, and Jupiter, natal Jupiter is the second house, lord of second house, Maraka Sthanadivati. Transit Jupiter is in 12th house, Moksha Sthanama or end of life, and transit Jupiter is co-joined with transit Saturn, transit Mars and natal Rahu. And transit Jupiter, as I said earlier, its direct aspect is on the 6th house and its 9th aspect is on the 8th house. So you can see how transit Jupiter is active here. And then the question comes is, according to Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, which house gets activated? Two ways. From natal Jupiter, the 8th house first gets activated. Who is in the 8th house from natal Jupiter? It is Libra, Scorpio. It's Scorpio. Jupiter is in Aries, so the 8th house is Scorpio, and you have the house lord Mars residing in Scorpio. Scorpio is owned by Mars and Aries. Jupiter is residing in the house owned by Mars, and from there Jupiter is activating the 8th house where the lord is already residing. And natal Jupiter's 4th aspect is directly on Moon, Chandra Lagna, Moon, and Moon is the 6th house lord from natal, from when you look from Chandra Lagna. The other thing is, which house does Jupiter activate from Lagna? Since we are considering the Chandra Lagna, it activates the 8th house from Chandra Lagna. Chandra Lagna, from the 8th house from Chandra Lagna is owned by Mercury, and you have Saturn residing there. So Saturn is the 1st and 12th house lord. 1st house is Tanusthanamo, 12th house is end of life. So Saturn residing in the 8th house is Mrityusthanamo. He has activated that house. When the house got activated, Saturn got activated too. And since it's having a direct, natal Saturn's 3rd aspect is on natal Mars. Natal Mars 4th aspect is on Moon, and Moon's direct aspect is on 7th house where 8th house lord is residing. If you look at in the picture, the 3 arrows shows you the green, the purple and the black. The 3 arrows shows you how the relationship has been built on during this time, and once the activation happened, the NATO's end of life event started. The only thing that concerns me is why now, because since I don't know the exact time of death, I cannot tell you where is natal transit Moon residing or where is transit Sun is residing. If I think transit Sun is residing in the is in Aries, Mesha, exalted. Yeah, the seventh house Lord Sun is the seventh house Lord, and transit Sun is residing in Aries, Mesha, where it got exalted. I tried to analyze the chart as simply as possible using the basic rules astrology for astrological predictions, and specifically using Chandra Lagna and the transit planets at the time of death. This analysis is just please use this analysis for educational purposes only. Thank you very much.